As host of A Diary of a CLO, I've had the privilege of interviewing a range of awesome and inspiring people. So for the second of our summer special episodes, I'm combining the knowledge of a group of diverse leadership talent that I've had on the podcast, from sporting heroes to founders, entrepreneurs, and change makers. There's a takeaway in this for everyone, and I've selected clips about positive energy, leading bravely, bouncing back, and conscious decision making. If you're a leader or an aspiring leader, give it a listen and share your thoughts with us.
Language is so important within groups because you know how you feel when someone comes to you and goes, I'm tired. It makes you go, well, I might be a bit tired actually, yeah, I'm pretty tired. But if you go, I just need a good night's sleep and I'll be great. It's such a different way of managing it. You're still letting your friend know that you're a bit on the edge, but it's a positive flip on your brain to think, I'll be good to go when I've had a little bit of rest. And it's very easy in cricket. It's 5 days long, a test match. You go through peaks and troughs emotionally. It's quite easy at times to sit down next to your mate and go, it's not my day, it's not going well today, it's not for me. But he's trained the whole group to abolish that completely. It'll be very much like, well, just accept that today's not your day, but tomorrow can be, and you'll be great tomorrow. And it just fills the group with energy all the time. My head coach at school was an ex-Lancashire cricketer called Frank Hales, and he was actually George Best's best friend, I think. So he had a pretty lively mid-20s. But when I was leaving school, so that would have been, 17, June baby, he said, promise me one thing, if you go into professional cricket, have the best filter in the world. And I was a bit like, really know what that means. But I can certainly look back now and it's evolved, definitely, because he meant, I've got an analytical brain, so I love information. Give me all the information, bang, bang, yeah, I want to hear it all. But if you're taking all that information from loads of different people, you'll get cloudy in your brain and you won't exactly know what direction you're going in. So if you can filter the great little bits that suit you as a character, suit your team, suit your style, it will give you such a great direction in what you're trying to do. So I think he meant that he felt he got changed by coaches in cricket. He was a very young, flary player, and coaches tried to make him play in a certain way that didn't suit him. So he meant have the filter towards coaches. But where it's developed is actually that filter towards social media, to be honest. In sport, it's you got to smile at some of the things that end up on your Instagram and Twitter. But if you can filter that down and don't take that to heart and laugh it off, sometimes don't even see it, it stands you in much better stead.
So I had a long career in the NHS, was a commissioner. I've been familiar with the NHS, I was a commissioner for 10 years. And then I went into working for a provider organisation, so provider of the care. And got into the boardroom. When I got into the boardroom, I think my youngest child was 4. They hadn't started school yet. And when I got there, I was the youngest director at the time. And I was the only Black director at the time. So quite daunting space to be in. And I was promoted from within. So I think also having to rebrand and reinvent myself to a point to be recognised as a director, but not losing who I was. And I remember a number of something really stuck in my mind and stood me in good stead when I became a director was so many people saying, don't change. We need you. We need you in the boardroom. We need the way you lead. We need the way you think. We need the way you are, Monique. Don't change and don't forget us. And I think that's then really important because sometimes when people climb the ladder, you forget where you started. You forget those people who helped you. And I think that advice that people gave me, I really carried that through. We are determined to see boardrooms more representative of the communities and staff they serve. And in that, I think being able to support senior leaders to lead bravely, to lead confidently, to lead inclusively. Both if you're in the minority, stepping into the boardroom when you're in a minority, what does that feel like? How do you manage that? How are you in a state of readiness to cope with that? Especially if the environment's toxic. But also the other side of the coin, challenging challenging those in the majority. What are you doing to lead inclusively? Are you giving your diverse leaders in the boardroom an equal voice? Or are they here just to tick a box? That's not what this is about. How are you succession planning? We hear those things. Oh, the talent isn't there. Yes, it is. Where are you looking? How are you looking? How are you looking at how you recruit? What are you trying to do differently? So really being able to challenge the conversation, but also share best practice. So Bravery in the Boardroom is a movement. We describe it as a movement because there's lots of work going on around in the ED&I space. But what we're trying to hone down on is what more can we all do now to help turn the dial on senior diverse talent development, but also on inclusive leadership. Where's the good practice? Let's share it. Let's understand it. Where are we hearing? Where do we see? When do you see panels, of ethnically diverse senior leaders telling their stories, of women telling their story and journey?
I think the difficulty in our business is you want fans, but at the same time, you don't want massive fans, because you have to be able to step back and make decisions based on the good of a business decision, not a sports decision all the time. It's the same in football, whatever. We're a business where people go, well, I love boxing, so I'd fit in there. And it's like, well, the reality is you'd come in and you probably wouldn't love it as much being directly involved in it. And you have to take those, you have to make hard decisions, which maybe as a fan, you'd go, what are they doing? Because you don't understand, the reasons behind it. But yeah, it's nice to give people opportunities. And like I say, we've got a big team here, and across our whole group business now, we've probably got 120, 130 people. Started off with 25, 30 when I was here, and there was a lot less even before that. So yeah, it's quite amazing to see the growth, and like I say, give people opportunities from a young age who then can go on and prove themselves. You're not always right, and sometimes it's like pride thing if you want everything you say to be right, but actually over time to let people take a bit of ownership of things, because you can't micromanage, especially at the level we're at. We do 40 odd boxing events a year. We're literally on the road every day, back, forward, next place, here, there, and everywhere. And you need to really step back and let people, you bring people into roles. There's no point bringing people in if you're literally going to sit on top of them and make every decision for them. Some people aren't going to be very good. That's the reality of it. And you just have to accept over a period of time, you're going to bring some people in who just want to coast their way through. Fair enough. Some people will go-getters and will work 24 hours a day. Brilliant. But it's about accepting all the different people that it takes to make up a business, I think, and accepting that you have to let up some control as a business grows as well. Like I say, when there was 5 or 6 of us, we were very much all involved in everything. Now, I don't get involved in much, because you wouldn't have enough time in the day to think about what are you trying to do in the future. Like for me, my focus now is growing our business internationally, spending a lot more time traveling around, meeting people to expand. And I can't do what I used to do while trying to do that. So I think that's the biggest learning for me really, is don't micromanage people and accept that people are going to make mistakes, but learn from them.
If you make mistakes, it really isn't the end. I got given a second chance in life, and I think there is always a way back from what you might feel at the time is rock bottom.
Typically, I think, as I said, I think a lot has changed with leaders in this kind of last generation. We used to see much more of a command and control style. People wanted to be in control, and the hierarchy was important, and respect for different levels was the kind of fundamental. And it was a bit kind of archaic, really, in terms of how new things were presented and accepted and engaged with. It had to be proven on a business case and a burning platform and everything else. Now I see a complete opposite. I see leaders who are absolutely fantastic, and they care so much about other people that they simply kind of can't prioritize enough of their day around being able to do the good things that they want to do. So no, I don't see a challenge. If anything, I see the challenge to leaders now is how do they prioritize and let go of the things that maybe once worked for them but aren't so effective now, and really focus in on the things that are going to make the biggest shift for them.
I am consciously choosing every single time what to put in my ears and therefore in my brain and therefore think about which actively makes me a far more conscious person. Most of the stuff that I choose is around personal development. It's about habits, it's about health and wellness and learning and education and science, which means that I am a far more educated, healthier, more conscious human being than I was 5 years ago. And I've done nothing other than the simple act of choosing what books to listen to and making time and space to put that in my life. If you compare that to, for example, I could just spend all that time scrolling through Instagram on my phone, I wouldn't be getting those kind of outputs because I wouldn't be being utterly conscious about what I'm choosing to do. Like, that's why Instagram activity, not to call it out, social media is great in its own way, but most of the time spent there is thoughtless. It's not very conscious. So you're not really necessarily deliberately learning, and therefore you're not embarking on active neuroplasticity, which means that you're not likely to be making your life better.
Yeah, I mean, I think in general, the tech industry just really struggles with hiring diverse tech teams. And it's very easy as an early stage startup to just be focused on getting whoever you can get quickly. And then before you know it, you have a 10 or 20% engineering team that all looks the same. And that immediately makes it harder to attract somebody else to that team, right? So it's this whole thing of momentum builds momentum. And one thing that I see that's positive in the world these days is I'm noticing a lot of startups paying attention to it a lot sooner than they used to. And that happens regardless of who their leadership team is or who the initial engineering team is. Not always, not across the board, but I do think it's a much larger theme than it was previously. And then I think what the problem is that people still don't really know what the solutions are unless they're one of those startups that's really passionate about doing it themselves.
So what did you think? There was such a lot of great advice and experience shared there. So connect with us to continue the conversation.